Welcome to What's in a Game. On today's show, Law Murray from The Athletic joins the pod. We are doing a mini-autopsy on the Nuggets-Clippers series, the Clippers offseason, and asking whether the Clippers-Nuggets matchup is a real threat to Denver's title hopes. Stay tuned. Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with our very special guest, a new friend of the show, joins the scene. Clippers beat writer for The Athletic, the only, the quote, culturally inappropriate Law Murray. How are you doing today, Law?
I'm doing good. I hope I'm doing better than my Wi-Fi right now. But
okay, yeah, I think was that all of us at the same time? We just had this stream cut out for a second.
Yeah. Like I'm really hoping that isn't me, because I can't fix it. But I'm really happy that I'm getting to finally chat with you on your show. I've just been following you for a while. It's been really cool how you jumped right on the Nuggets bandwagon, and I've really enjoyed seeing you enjoy the game. So it's cool to finally get a chance to be on here.
I'm getting a message from the producer that I should reintroduce, since I think it was my internet that cut off in the middle of that intro. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll jump right into the show. Okay. So I'm Grace Jean here with our special guest, a new friend of the show, Clippers beat writer for The Athletic, the one, the only, the culturally inappropriate Law Murray. And we are very excited to have you on the show again today, Law. So that'll be, fixed in post and all that. But everybody who's watching the live stream gets to see how the sausage gets made.
Yeah, see, it's funny because I asked right before, is this live? Because that ain't going to change me, but it might change things for y'all. So.
Okay, a couple programming notes before we dive into the show. I actually have a surprise guest coming on the show later this week to grade every NBA offseason. That is going to be a whopper of a show, as you can imagine, with 30 NBA teams. So be sure to tune in this Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And co-host and behind-the-scenes producer of the show for today, Will Jones, for those of you who are new and don't know who the man behind the curtain is, we'll be going on DNVR's Serbian Quarter for trivia with Miroslav this Saturday afternoon. So he's got a really long Saturday ahead of him with those multiple shows. So be sure to mark your calendars for that one as well. Stay tuned till the end of the show, as Will and I will be doing a little film session on the Serbia-Germany pre-Eurobasket international friendly that happened this last weekend. I didn't know that there would be so many clips that I wanted to break down from an exhibition game, basically, but I actually found quite a few that I think the audience will find interesting. Please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us out with the algorithm as we try to grow the channel. We are currently stuck at 1,100 subscribers, so we appreciate all of you that have subscribed already, but our next goal is 1,500, so please help us out and hit that subscribe button. All right, Law, before we jump into Nuggets Clippers, I think we should let the people know a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this business. So first question is, what is the origin of your NBA specifically, or basketball generally, fandom to this point?
It started with NBA Jam. I've written about this before. I didn't think I was going to be into any sports when I was in second grade, which is, for me, that was 94-95 season. I was into video games, and I was a smart kid, but I didn't think I'd be an athlete, so I wasn't into that stuff. Like, closest thing to anything athletic that I might have been interested in at that time was some of the games that I was playing. It's like I played Street Fighter, played Mortal Kombat. I definitely thought I could throw hands, at a young age. Might have done that a little too often in my elementary school days. So I saw that video game in the arcade, and that got me kind of hooked. I was like more interested. I used to be scared of the ball. Now I'm like, oh, you can steal it. You can take it away from people. I think I can do that. Now, I was able to do that. Like the cool thing was where I was going after school in second grade, arcade was there, and across the hall was the basketball court. So, and I never had quarters to play, mind you. So I'm up here watching all the demos and whatnot of NBA Jam, just being like, "Oh man, if you just get one quarter, you can play just a first quarter of the game. You needed 4 quarters to play a whole 4 quarters of the game, right?" So like, I would just be watching and admiring, and anytime someone with actual coins would come up to the machine, and I would watch them play, it's like, oh, that's the whole game or whatnot. Like that's kind of what got me into it. And I was good defensively right away. I didn't learn how to shoot like properly for like another 2 years. Like I was a scrawny kid. Like I couldn't get the ball. Like I literally was shooting Rick Barry style. Before I even know who Rick Barry was, and that's funny because now anyone who sees me play, I'm a guy who shoots from everywhere, catch and shoot, off of screens. Like that's kind of how I play now. So that's really when I got into basketball, when I knew that I was interested in not just playing the game, but thinking the game. I mean, I got crazy hooked. Like I wanted all the magazines. I wanted there were these thick manuals that would come out, these almanacs on basketball. Some of them were from Street and Smith, and there was, the league used to put out a register and a guide every year. And I told my parents, like, I wanted all of that stuff. Like I got comfortable with the numbers very early, like before middle school. And so for me, it was like, okay, I'm playing this game, but that's how I got into the history of it. That's how I got into understanding not just the stats, but understanding how those stats happen, what is good and what is not good relative to how that game was being played then, and evolving that as time went along. I didn't think I'd want to write, I thought I wanted to play because every kid wants to play as long as they can, but I didn't think I'd be a writer. I thought maybe I'd be a broadcaster, but I wanted to be a statistician, basically. That's how I kind of approached it. So the journalism stuff came way later. And I wasn't exactly born with the ball in my crib, but like shout out to NBA Jam for getting me into this.
I love how you said that basically it was the delinquency associated with the defensive end of the floor is what got you into like the video game. And then once you actually started playing, you're like, actually, like defense was.
Have you played NBA Jam?
I haven't.
You got to someone need to take you to the arcade, a retro arcade, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I get what I was saying now.
Yeah, well, I was definitely big into video games as a kid, but never ones that involved actual sports, fighting and other kinds of I guess things that are recreated. But for the most part, I liked fantasy violence. Okay, so you said you never really fashioned yourself as or saw yourself becoming a reporter as a kid, but you did think about broadcasting. So you were thinking about the media side of it. You were interested in the statistics of it as you grew in your depth of knowledge of the game, right? So how did you get into writing, and then ultimately, how did you become someone that covers the Clippers in particular, and in specifically for The Athletic?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and keep this concise because it's a winding road. But like, even when I was a kid, like I used to be the type to give my classmates like some random facts and information that I learned or came up with or conceptualized. Like I would always do that. Like when I was understanding what a depth chart was. Like I would take every person in my class. This was like 4th, 5th grade, right? So like before you would be split up and have different sets of classmates for all your subjects, like math and science class or language arts, whatever. Back when it's like all those kids in the same classroom, like from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And it's like, yeah, like y'all all on this basketball team that I got, right? And I would write it down and be like, this is the roster, this is the depth chart. Of course I'm starting, but this is who's playing and who's on the team and what they can all do. I used to like really be inclusive about that kind of thing, but I didn't really think that I would be like interested in creative writing until I started watching Saturday Night Live freshman year of high school. Like that was Will Ferrell's last season on the show, especially Weekend Update. Because when I first saw it, I was like, is this the real news? Like, because I wasn't sure what was going on at midnight when it would come on, right? And so I started to put my own like newsletter together that I sent to my friends that I developed over time. And I would do that newsletter the first of every month. I did that for 7 years in a row, 7 straight years. So I had 85 editions. Some of them were terrible. And some of them were like, man, I don't even write like this no more. When I look back on them, over that time, I developed a comfort with writing and being creative. Like I'm not a great square writer. I'm just not like, but I wanted to be a comedy writer, honestly. And all I knew was to just email my friends, every first of the month for all that time. The first time I got to write consistently as far as like sports writing was when I first got out of college. I was covering an NFL team. I was covering the Titans for this NFL website. And then after a month, they were like, oh, you good. You know your stuff. Because just kind of like how I got to get into basketball, got into pro football too. And I learned I can catch everything. So again, it's got to be a correlation of, I can do a little bit of this, right? And so I wound up writing Patriots articles, the first of pretty much for 3 straight seasons, the 2009, 2010, and the 2011 season. I did that before I really got to consistently write for anybody covering basketball. I got to USC for grad school. And I got to go to the Olympics, the Winter Olympics in 2014 in Russia. When I came back, there was an offer for me to write for Clipper Blog, which was Kevin Arnovitz's site that was picked up by True Hoop when the blogs were like peaking in the 2010s. And that's when I first got to really consistently write covering one basketball team, one NBA team. And so that was a convenient arrangement for me because I never expressed any particular interest in the Clippers, but I was always a lot more open about writing about the Clippers than the Lakers. I was never interested in writing about the Lakers. The Clippers, I remember my first year in LA. That was Blake Griffin's first year on the court, and I was like, look, I know the Lakers are the 2-time defending champions, but I don't like them. And the Clippers, a team that I've always just never had any feelings of other than they had a racist owner, and that they were terrible every year. I was just like, well, they're exciting. I know their history, but Blake is dunking that ball right there. You know what I'm saying? Like he looks like he's more exciting to watch than anybody the Lakers got. And then they get Chris and they get good. And they literally have not had a losing season since they got Chris Paul the first time. And so I've always been like, I'm trying to cover the NBA. I'm trying to cover everybody, but I'm in LA and I get to cover this good team. Because again, when the Clippers were getting good, the Lakers were being terrible. Like there was a 5-year stretch where they had the most losses in the league. And then they got gifted LeBron James. By that point, I was at ESPN as an editor. I wanted to keep the dream of being a reporter or being a writer, being creative, being in charge of what I'm doing alive. And The Athletic, I communicated that to them because I didn't think that I would get an opportunity to write at ESPN, especially as my time at ESPN went along. My opportunities to write decreased instead of increased. And during the pandemic, The Athletic opened up a spot because Jovan went from covering the Clippers to covering the Lakers. And I was someone who had covered the Clippers. Like I had a footprint covering that team before, and I had some potential. Like no one had ever given me a chance to write, and the Athletic gave me my chance to be a reporter, to be a writer. And 5 seasons later, I'm still there.
That's really cool. That's really cool. We often don't get as much of the sort of behind the scenes details there, like the opportunities to write when you were at ESPN, like going down. Do you like what was the reason for that, you think?
There was just a lot going on from a priority and leadership standpoint. You know, I was hired by ESPN to be an editor on and really emphasize like game coverage. So I got a chance to
Mhm.
stay in LA. Like they hired me after I was at the NFL as a researcher. You know, my perspective was always going to be different because I would have my seasonal job as a researcher, but I would moonlight covering the NBA, covering the Clippers. You know, I didn't get paid for any of that. That was all hustle for 3 years, and even then, I was like, man, this is a true hoop thing. So I'm not trying to like encroach. You know, I was just trying to move the move the sticks along, if so to speak. So to be able to get to ESPN, that was just people were pushing for me and interested in me because of my background. Like I really cared about not just basketball and being a fan of the game, but like I wanted it to be covered a certain type of way. Like I wanted to raise the floor of coverage. Like everyone's going to cover the
Mhm.
team with the biggest market or the team that's the champion, the best team. And for me, I'm like, what about the teams that are, you know, breaking through? You know, what can you say about how the game is now compared to 5 years ago? Like, and I expressed that. So, you know, ESPN was a great opportunity for me, and I'm really grateful to be there, if nothing else, because I was working with, at the time, certainly some of the best writers, if not the best writers covering the game. You know, like I got to be behind the scenes of stories being crafted either right away because they were at
Mhm.
that game or over time, over the course of a season. Like great reporters. You can see who was at ESPN in the mid 2010s until 2020 when I left. There's still great reporters and great writers there now, great editors there now. But like I learned a lot. So like I don't know if the Athletic knew this when they hired me, but they didn't just get a writer and a reporter. They got somebody who had the perspective of doing a whole lot of other jobs and a whole lot of other perspectives when it comes to sports media in general and then
Mhm.
basketball specifically.
Yeah. I would like to say, just as my own sort of side commentary on this, that the way that you cover the Clippers is definitely like what sort of drew me to, frankly, paying attention to that team a couple years ago. Mostly following Law on Twitter. You just definitely cover it with a depth and a care that whether it's true or not, it's the level of care that someone who is a not necessarily a fan, but someone who cares about the team and the way the team is covered would cover it. And I don't mean like fluff pieces or anything, but you're like, I'm trying to make sure I'm ascertaining like the different angles of what's going on in a given, stretch of games, whether the team is doing well or not, and not just sort of, the covering the top line of what's going on. So everybody should check out Law's work on The Athletic, on Twitter, etc. Let's dive into the Nuggets Clippers series. So I would have loved to have Law on immediately after this series because in my opinion, it was a top 2 or 3 series of the entire playoffs this year. Went 7 games, obviously, but I just thought it was really rich in like the texture that had like very different beats throughout those 7 games. Like no 2 games really looked the same. And I told Law this when I had to basically cancel at him. I said, "History's written by the victors," and uh, the OKC series was starting 2 days later. So we had to
I packed a
cover
bag for
that preview.
Game 7 in Denver. I
That's
packed a
right.
bag for Game 1 in Oklahoma. That was just like I had never done that in my life
That's the
before.
life of a beat writer, though, right?
Yep. You had to be
Is
prepared
if you
for
travel with the
whatever.
team. I want to cover a little bit about the series as a whole and its different rhythms for sure. But I think we have to start our discussion with Game 4 because it feels like and has been discussed as a really big pivot point in that series, right?
Yeah.
Heading into Game 4, the Clippers had a 2-1 series lead, winning Game 3 in blowout fashion. We didn't know how Denver was going to respond and whether that even if they responded well, would that result in a victory, right? And the Clippers had obviously garnered that lead despite not having home court when they stole one at Denver in Game 2, right? What was the expectation for how the Clippers would come out in Game 4 with that opportunity to go up 3-1 at home?
Man, well, right after they blew the Nuggets out in Game 3, Tyronn Lue got to the podium and stressed how that team needed to validate the performance that they put forth in Game 3 because that was the first playoff game at Intuit Dome. Everyone knew that the energy was going to be exquisite. Like they destroyed the Nuggets. It seemed like they broke their spirit that night, but you would only say that if you never watched the Clippers in the playoffs before. Like, imagine getting comfortable with anything involving the LA Clippers in a postseason setting. They've never made a series easy for themselves, no matter who the coach is. So, but even if you remove the Clippers part of that narrative, the Nuggets weren't in a good place. Like, remember, this is the same team that had a different head coach when that month of April started. No one had ever done that in the 21st century, especially on purpose.
For context, after getting blown out in Game 3, that was their first loss in 6 games. And 6 games prior, they had a different head coach and a different general manager. So that was the context heading into the postseason, was like, this is their first loss since they made this change. And like, is any of this stuff that seems to have been building where they were like, okay, maybe they're starting to figure things out. Is that actually going to stick? Or was this we were calling it a dead coach bounce, if you've heard of a dead cat bounce before. And we honestly had no idea what it was going to look like when they tried to respond from the first loss after all of that turmoil that led to the firing. So, but continue on, Law.
Yeah. I mean, when they lost Game 2, like that gave the Clippers momentum going back home for Game 3, and then they blow them out in Game 3. And after Game 3, you lose. Like, we got to validate this. I thought them winning Game 3 was huge because what I knew when the damn schedule for the series came out was that Game 4 was in the afternoon. It was going to feel like a back-to-back, as close to a back-to-back as you get in the playoffs, as close as a back-to-back as you get in that series because of the fact that Game 3 and Game 4, the start times were so close, right? And again, going back to the Clippers briefly, the Clippers built Intuit Dome, and they pushed hard to not have any afternoon starts at home in their building, and they succeeded. The NBA schedule makers, they shined on them when the schedule came out, no afternoon starts, because anyone who knows that team, especially in the last few years, know that they play the jankiest basketball in the afternoon. Doesn't mean they'll lose. It just means they might be down by 20 points. Well, guess what happened in Game 4? Afternoon start. The game is already just messy. You had Norman Powell get into it. Little dust up or whatever. People thought Aaron Gordon was supposed to be ejected because
was Game 4 also the one with that almost kind of dust up right before halftime? I totally forgot
right before halftime
was.
So like the game clearly it was like Denver is going to just they're going to fight. There's going to be something about this game that is different than Game 3. To your point, none of these games were like any of the other games over the course of a 7-game series. The closest might have been 5 and 7.
5 and 7, yeah.
But we're not there yet. We're just at game 4. So even at halftime, I'm like, this isn't great. Like, the Clippers clearly beat the crap out the Nuggets in the previous game, but this is a dogfight. This is a slot. All the easy stuff the Clippers were getting in game 3, they are not getting in game 4. It's close. And Nikola Jokic dragged his dudes out that halftime locker room, and he destroyed the Clippers. It was a tour de force of dominance in that third quarter.
That third quarter is one of the best quarters I've ever seen Jokic play, playoffs, regular season, whatever.
Yeah, he made more baskets by himself than the entire Clippers team in that third quarter. But there was a catch, Grace, and you know what the catch was. They absolutely ran those minutes up. They didn't have Russell Westbrook at all, okay?
That's right, because Russ had gotten injured in the middle of the blowout in game 3.
Exactly. So he's in street clothes. The team is kind of splintered because there was some kind of blow up, in between game 3 and 4. So you never know which way a team is going to go when there's some infighting going on, where there's some trust issues or whatever. And so when you already have a thin bench, so there wasn't a lot of reliable players for David Adelman to go to. Even the guys starting, we know, and we might get to this later on in this show, but there are even guys who are starting who you're like, are we sure that you are going to be reliable in this high stakes setting? Anyway, David Adelman ran those minutes of those guys up in the third quarter. Nikola did what he did. They lead by 20. They wind up leading by
22.
They wound up leading by 22 early in the fourth quarter. But man, there was just no trust in the bench. And that is when I was like, I'm not going to write this game off for the Clippers just yet, because those minutes, those legs are going to be cooked. And it's just a determination of what can the Clippers do to just see if the Nuggets can hang on. Because if anybody can just, play a bunch of guys and run a lead up and not make any subs whatsoever, you do it. But the reason you don't is because those same guys are going to need a break at some point. We saw that in the Lakers-Timberwolves series the same weekend. And it was even more extreme in that series. So I was like, let me see how this goes, Grace. Let me see how this goes. And that's where you had the comeback. And I've seen so many Clippers comebacks. The Nuggets have seen Clippers comebacks. Like, I remember a few years ago, the Nuggets had, I think, a 25-point lead downtown LA in the regular season when the Clippers didn't have any of their stars. No Kawhi, no Paul George. And then the Clippers stole a game from them. This is during a stretch where I think the Nuggets beat the Clippers 9 out of 11 times or something like that. One of the times was that big comeback. So even
when your starters are out, that's when your team is most dangerous against Denver, is when your starters are out.
And also when the Nuggets get that big lead, because it doesn't take just the Clippers. The Nuggets are known for, they'll get a big lead and they will relax. They'll chill. They'll need an angry timeout from Michael Malone. Well, Mike Malone's not around no more to call them angry timeouts. It's going to have to be David Adelman and how he was going to proceed and try and protect this lead when those legs, not only were those tired legs, not only were they on the road, but again, this turnaround, right? Turnaround from game 3 and game 4. You play all those guys, and Nikola especially. Nikola's a big dude. I don't care that he's the best in the game. He's a human being, even as superhuman as he is. And that's what allowed the Clippers to not just cut that lead down, but use all that momentum to even, erase the lead completely in that fourth quarter, game 4. But as you know, game needed a little bit more time, and they didn't run through the tape completely.
I think Grace is frozen. She might be back. Can you hear us, Grace?
Okay, am I back? Okay, yeah. I heard, and that's how they allowed the Clippers to, and then everything cut out.
Yeah. I was like, let me hold because I'm not sure
Okay.
what's happening.
No, but you can continue from there.
No, like
Just generally, yeah. I completely agree with you when it comes to that comeback. Will knows this. I have a really tough time rewatching losses for my team. So I was really glad that they ended up winning game 4. But watching that fourth quarter was such a it was clarifying in one sense, but it was also frustrating. I remember in the moment thinking, wow, they're getting completely flummoxed by this zone. But upon rewatch, I'm like, okay, they're kind of getting like mostly the right shots. These guys just have no legs on them. They're just missing threes and then not getting back in transition. That was just possession after possession after possession. And so I do think the way that you're sort of telling the story of what happened in this game with Denver was part of it. But there's still the fact of like, this is still a 22-point deficit, right? What point in the comeback did you really feel like, okay, LA like can actually win this game? It's not going to be one of those like fake comebacks.
yeah.
Because
When
for me,
Kawhi,
it was. Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
I
go
was
ahead,
going to
Grace.
say it was. I was going to say it was. And Will, if you could pull this one up, Bogey's putback over Jokic, which was with a minute left, right? Because at this point, it's still like, okay, Denver's still up. Like they need to stop playing around and whatever. They're only up like, what is it, a point at this point? So Kawhi misses the shot. Jokic gets the rebound. Bogey runs in and rips it from him and hits a tough reverse layup to give the Clippers their, first lead in the game since maybe the first quarter?
Yeah.
And I was like, are they really going to steal this game? Because my eyes rolled all the way back in my head at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was before that.
Okay.
I mean, because there was a good timeout called after Kawhi. He just stalled Jamal Murray prone, back turn to the basket, and Kawhi just went in there like a spear fisherman and got himself a pick six dunk, basically, right? That forced a timeout, and the Nuggets actually increased their lead after that timeout. Like under 4 minutes ago, and Jamal hit some tough shots. He had a shot out of that timeout, and then he hit a three. But then, I mean, the Clippers just played fast. They had a fast lineup out there. That's why Bogey was out there. Bogey had a really tough series, but he played extremely well, just fitting in as a threat. Because at that point, they were like, we're not stopping him with Derrick Jones Jr. We're not stopping him with Chris Dunn. They had to have something else, just a threat to open the game up for those other guys, right? And so when the Clippers gave up that three to Jamal, they put together multiple stops, and that included another timeout that had been called. That timeout under, I think, 3 minutes to go. That one didn't work. And they just I thought the Clippers were just going to zoom by them. I thought they were not even going to let the Nuggets have an opportunity to tie or save the game. I mean, they did take that lead on the Bogey putback, and it was crazy that Bogey was the one with the putback, because Bogey's not a big rebounder like that. But that's the thing with having Bogdanovic out there. It was like, he has played in these big games. I mean, he's Nikola's Serbian teammate. Like, they've played on the world stage in the craziest atmospheres. That guy's going to compete even if he's not playing as well. There's a poise that comes with that. Right. And that's why he was out there. And ironically, the same thing.
Having a good series or really even a good game in his first stint in that game. So I was surprised at how much they ran with him. But then he has this huge moment in a pivot, like could have been a pivotal moment in the game, in the series, right there with ripping that rebound from Jokic and then hitting that reverse layup for the lead.
Yeah, that lineup, it was interesting because when you have to make a big comeback like that, you need some luck. You need to catch some lightning in the bottle. You need a spark. And sometimes it's lineups that are unconventional. The group of guys where it's like, this is our last chance at doing anything to cut a sizable lead like this down. And the Nuggets, they relaxed. But part of the relaxation came in the fact that they were tired. Not just tired because they played a lot of minutes, but it takes maximum effort to build a lead like that. Again, look at how Nikola got his buckets in that third quarter. Like, he went hard. He was decisive. He was not the, hey, I'm Nikola Jokic, I can get 10 dimes. It was the, I'm Nikola Jokic, you aren't stopping me. In a series that he probably faced the greatest resistance as a scorer since he became an MVP caliber player, right?
Yeah.
He was so good in that
agreed.
third quarter, but that tank is finite. I don't care who it is. It could be Michael Jordan out there. You know what I'm saying? The tank is finite, and the Clippers took advantage of that. It's just that the Clippers needed that game to be about a minute shorter.
Yeah. So Bogey has the Clippers take the lead. Some free throw things happen in the interim, and the Clippers regain the lead again on, I believe it was either a Harden floater or a layup. And then Jokic has to tie it up with this tough Sombor shuffle. Well, if you could play this one as well. This one honestly surprised me because, like you said, this is the greatest resistance that Jokic has faced as a scorer, at least in terms of like somebody who's getting one-on-one coverage, because oftentimes the way that you give him resistance as a scorer is by doubling and triple teaming him like the Thunder did in the very subsequent series. But I think Zoo, in terms of one-on-one defense, has probably done the best of any singular defender that Jokic has faced. But he has to go to his patented Sombor shuffle after like really like getting some ground on Zoo, but he's not getting to the spot that he wants. Has to go to this tough turnaround, makes it, and I'm like, oh my God. And they tie it up. Okay. So then what happens? Harden gets a layup because Christian Brown let him get to his left again.
He missed it, that layup. That's the thing about it. Zoo wound up tying it up. Like,
that's right. That's right. Because Zoo gets he got the hook shot off the offensive rebound before this. Yes.
But that was the ATO. The ATO was James getting to his spot, and James got a good. Not all misses are the same. When I watch Kobe Bryant miss a ton of shots and have Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum put him back, that's the Kobe assist, right? Not all misses are the same. The good misses are the ones that draw the defense in, draw the help in, draw that rim protection or what's left of the rim protection in. And when that thing comes off soft off the rim, your offensive rebound, your crashers are uncovered. And that's what happens.
Zubac to come in and gobble up yet another offensive rebound. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is literally killing me right now.
Right? Something about offensive rebounds, right?
Yeah. So let's go to the last play of this game then. When Jokic's 30-footer goes up, well, you can play this one while I describe here. He has to go to a turnaround, so they make they make Jamal's catch pretty far. He gives the ball to Jokic. Jokic tries to ISO Zoo, and then Kawhi comes to late blitz. Jokic completely airmails that, and that delivery gets right to Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
For maybe the best putback dunk ever. And what was your reaction when Jokic's shot went up?
When it went
up,
from
where you were sitting,
man. First of all, I'm up here taking the damn thing like my thing's going to go viral or something, right? You know, even though thousands of other people are doing the same damn thing, like, and neither one of us had the Hawkeye camera, which is what mattered, right? And so this, when it goes up, it's like, I've seen Jokic make it. I've seen him miss it. Like, I was poised because there are things that I had seen before. What I had not seen before is somebody put the damn thing back and barely beat the buzzer. And of course, there have been Clipper buzzer beaters or near buzzer beaters, because many will bring up DeAndre Ayton in the value. That was not a buzzer beater. it just might as well have been. This was a true buzzer beater. This one was a walk-off. And you saw Aaron put that damn thing in there and tried to find the visitors' locker room and into it dome immediately and take as many of his teammates with him as he could. And so I'm looking at that and
the
I'm like,
look of expectation on his face also there when he's like he's watching the replay to see if it's good is like, I don't think I've seen something like that before.
Oh, it killed the moment because like you have to you have the suspense now, and it's the funniest thing now that there's so many replays and so many triggers for replays. You have these announcers who go from calling a basketball game to immediately going into a different level of broadcasting. You know, like you'll see it in an altercation. Like in an altercation, it's like these guys all of a sudden are, you know, they're it's like they have boxing cards all of a sudden. It's like, oh, you know. That was an open fist, you know. He landed it. This should just be double technicals, whatever. Now it's with these. You can say, all right, man. We keep unofficial stats on how right you were about the replay. So go ahead and put your record on the line. And that's what this was. The Clippers wanted anything too late, offensive basket interference, and I'm like, oh, there's a possibility that this could go into overtime. And you just had to be like, what angle, what shots are there going to be to determine that this was good? Because it is so close. And that's when we got introduced to the Hawkeyes. So I feel like for me, again, I've seen the Clippers lose so many heartbreaking games that for me, it was just a matter of how can I properly contextualize things that have happened in the past that have nothing to do with these current players? And how can I drive home the point that this is something that these current players, and especially the current head coach who made the lineup decision, was never going to be able to live down no matter what happens going. Because even if the Clippers won that series, people are going to be like, y'all extended the series too long. And guys are going to be more tired going up against an OKC team that literally ended their series earlier that day against the Memphis Grizzlies. So the Thunder were just sitting back and be like, oh, we love this. We swept our first round opponent. We're just waiting on these two buffoons keep beating each other up, and we'll see them in Oklahoma City whenever game one is. You know, the Thunder got a week off, Grace?
They did. And there was, you know, we could get into that. But after the game one against the Thunder, everyone was like, or not everyone, but there was a discussion of, oh my gosh, rust versus rust, all of this stuff. How did the Thunder like lose this game? Blah, blah, blah. What was I going to say? Did you think it was good when this put back dunk went in? Like, what were you? What in the moment you had to like gun to your head? You got to make a call, good or not.
I was preparing for it to be good. I mean, I just was like, it's not the Clippers. It's just the Clippers.
It's the Clippers.
I thought they would lose game 4. That miss was so imperfect that it gave Aaron Gordon an opportunity to make sure that the Clippers remember it forever, you know? And I just was like, I thought it was close. I understood, hey, maybe the Clippers have a point. Maybe it's basket interference. But I thought that thing was too damn close. And it was just a matter of whether they got the shot.
Stand. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's like, would it have been good if you had none of this technology? You know what I mean? If this was the 90s, would it have been good? They would have counted it. And I just felt like, well, we're going to really know. And they found the shot that determined that it was definitively good. And for me, when a game like that happens, that's where it's like, I'm a writer, I'm a reporter, I'm in the moment. The game might have ended for every one of those competitors on the floor. The game as a writer starts for us. We got to figure out what the questions are.
Right then.
The guys on the floor, what did they see? What did they feel? All that. You're in work mode, and that's when your work really starts.
So you actually mentioned a bit of the, I don't know, debate, discussion, chastising of Ty Lue's lineup decisions, particularly on that final play that was happening within Clipper world. I don't remember if Will and I talked about that on the show in the moment during the series, but why don't you elaborate on that a little bit before we move on to that moment? Because I think it's relevant to our discussion of what the rebounding sort of picture looked like really for both teams throughout this series.
Yeah, well, specifically to that lineup, coaches don't always change lineups when it's a situation like that. And sometimes you go and it's like, you guys got us back in the game. That group defended and rebounded well enough over a 10-minute period of time to cut 20 to really a 23-point turnaround in that fourth quarter. So you are basically saying, hey, over time, we needed to get stops in the form of missed shots, turnovers, and defensive rebounds and not fouling. And they did that for the most part. So you're not thinking we're going to get Ben Simmons off the exercise bike to come in for this last possession. Also, it's a misnomer to say that if you need a rebound, there was anybody on that bench you trust. Like, those dudes weren't good rebounders last season. And that's what this series was about. That's the irony about this. It's like, in a way, some of your best rebounders were out there, and it was just a matter of the ball bouncing a certain way and executing. Now, those guys who were trusted to execute, Zoo and Kawhi executed. And there wasn't a whole lot Bogey could do, But James Harden, 35 years old, and, literally James Harden, jumping with Aaron freaking Gordon is not a plan anytime. You get a body on him. That sequence is different. Norman Powell, same thing. He's just kind of staring there. Get a body on somebody, and maybe it's different. If that ball hits the rim, it's just like it hits the rim, and it's probably going to overtime. That's what you plan for. You're like, hey, force a miss, force a turnover. If he misses, you're not thinking that the weak side is an air ball from Nikola Jokic with the game on the line. It's a confluence of bad luck. It's one of those things, though, that drives your decision-making for the rest of the series. And when you lose a series like that, it drives your decision-making when it comes to team building. And this was the most drastic team building as far as rotation players I've seen from the Clippers in at least 5 years.
In terms of a shift.
Yeah.
In team
building. You got annihilated by Aaron Gordon, which you can't just say, oh, that's just because of how the series went. No, Aaron Gordon ever since he left Orlando, Florida, has looked forward to seeing the LA Clippers, because the LA Clippers for years have built their rosters with a complete absence of what a power forward is. They've always said, we have a guard, a play starter, whatever. We have a big, and we have 3 wings, This was a team that had Marcus Morris starting for a long time. Nico Batum has been on the team since 2020, except for when they needed Nico as part of the James Harden deal. When they got James Harden, they included Robert Covington in that deal with Nico and Marcus Morris, and completely just decided we don't need a true, big body power forward. We don't really need athletic size at all. We have skill. That was the emphasis of every Clippers roster, pretty much. It was about who can be the most skilled players around our 2 best players. And for years, it was Paul and Kawhi. And when you got James got to take a step back to emphasize Paul and Kawhi. Well, you lose Paul, and really you lose Kawhi for half of the year, and you build your team differently. They still didn't have a power forward, not a big body guy. I mean, if anything, it was the upper direction. They got smaller, and a funny thing happened. They executed extremely well. A team that I thought would be one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the league, not only battled, but they were the best. And that was before Kawhi came back. They were number 1 in defensive rebound percentage. And the only guy who you look at from a raw stat standpoint and say they're a top rebounder is Ivica Zubac. And yes, they extended Ivica Zubac's minutes. He played more than ever, and he was better than ever. He was outstanding. He was an all-defensive guy for the first time in his career for a reason. I voted for him as Defensive Player of the Year because I'm like, they're a top 5 defense and they did it basically because they weren't going to be a team that you could do anything with in the paint. They prioritized those things, and the only guy that can make that work, the one indispensable defender on that team, was Ivica Zubac. And you notice when Ivica Zubac wasn't in the game, the Clippers, they rebounded like the Toronto Raptors. Newsflash, the Toronto Raptors haven't been a good rebounding team since maybe Kawhi was there, okay? But when Ivica Zubac is in the game, they were outstanding. Well, here's why the Denver Nuggets present a really challenging quandary for even that version of the Clippers because of Nikola Jokic. Because when Nikola Jokic is on the floor, you need Ivica Zubac to deal with him. But it's not just that Nikola Jokic is a good shooter. Nikola Jokic is a guy who touches the ball more than almost anybody in the league. I'm not talking about just centers, Grace. I'm talking about even the point guards, even the guys anybody. And if that guy's got the ball, that means he's running inverted pick and rolls. He's bringing the ball up. He's pushing it in transition. You need to be accountable for him because even when he passes it, he might get a wedge and then he's going to get the ball again. And that 280-pound dude on a good day and a diet is going to the basket with momentum. That requires Ivica Zubac's attention, and that means that Ivica Zubac is probably at the elbow or probably beyond the three-point line. And that leaves those big dudes on the Nuggets crashing from the corners or the dunker spot or wherever, even with the Nuggets being the best team in the league at putting the ball in the basket. That is unique because if Ivica Zubac is away from the basket, someone's got to deal with Aaron Gordon. And you know what? Someone else has to deal with Michael Porter Jr., who is 6'10" and grabs damn near 2 offensive rebounds per game. That's a unique challenge. If the Clippers played the Nuggets for 82 games in the regular season, guess what, Grace? They're not the best defensive rebounding team in the league anymore. And you got to see that play out over a 7-game series.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And you mentioned it a little bit in that, spiel there. But Jokic is, or at least this last season, was one of the best shooters in the NBA. That's why Zubac was guarding him all the way out at the perimeter on that final play. That's why Kawhi goes to soft double him as a secondary contest on a 30-foot turnaround fadeaway, leaving nobody in the paint who can even pretend to deal with Aaron Gordon on that final possession, right?
Yeah.
And just to put some numbers to it, like you said, the Clippers, they had the best defensive rebounding percentage in the league. 75% in non-garbage time. This is from cleaning the glass. Down to 67.5% in the playoffs. For context, the 2024 Oklahoma City Thunder, which is the team that everyone was like, this team is too small. They're going to struggle with, they don't rebound well enough to be a good enough playoff defense, all of that stuff. I personally think that their offense was their issue, even in that playoff run. But, the glass was still an issue for that team. That team had a 69% defensive rebounding rate. And so the Clippers were very outmatched on the glass for all of the reasons that you said when it comes to the size. But I also think that the perimeter, or at least the relative perimeter athleticism, really gave them trouble. You talked about Aaron Gordon. You talked about Michael Porter Jr. as part of that front line. I think Russ and Christian Brown especially were feasting on the offensive glass just by getting to those loose balls a little bit faster than any of the Clippers perimeter players a lot of the time. And you look at guys like Derrick Jones Jr., like Chris Dunn, who, are kind of these are our athletic perimeter dudes, but they weren't able to play the kinds of minutes that Russ and Christian Brown were, because of the way that Denver, when you think about guys, these are all the guys that both teams ignore on the perimeter, by the way, when they're guarding each other. So They actually all have a lot of opportunities to crash at the same time. But for obvious reasons, Denver was more reliant on those guys. So they got a lot of minutes, and the Clippers were we have other options. So we're going to go away from our athletic perimeter dudes because they're causing too many issues for us offensively. Right. And so what do you think about that component separate from the frontline size issue with the Clippers last year as a contributor to their issues on the defensive glass?
Well, that is why, honestly, Norman Powell's not on the team anymore because and also why so much of the Clippers offseason from a backcourt standpoint was to more or less minimize how much you're relying on someone like Chris Dunn, a guy who was a primary starter, a revelation, not just into himself and to the Clippers, but this is a guy who they were happy to have Chris Dunn, but Chris Dunn wound up replacing Terrence Mann, a guy that they paid, and right before the season started. They made Terrence expendable. They wound up trading Terrence to get Bogdan.
A guy who they didn't. Terrence was a guy they didn't want to include in previous trade packages.
Exactly. Like they value Terrence Mann at a high level organizationally for years. And I don't quite think the coaching staff valued him as much. Or, I'm sure they appreciated him, but as far as like featuring him and having him in the best situations, lineup wise, like even last year, they started Terrence Mann as a point of attack defender when we had an entire season to show that that's not the best usage of Terrence Mann unless they happen to be playing the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic, right? Like, but Chris Dunn, he was valuable in that. Chris Dunn, as a point of attack guy along with Derrick Jones Jr., transformed the Clippers defense from a also ran unit to a top 3 defense in the entire NBA. And one that was older, unlike the Thunder and the Magic, the 2 teams that were above them in this thing. But against the Nuggets, things change. Like, you got to be able to defend those guys. And the best defense that the Nuggets had was straight up ignoring guys and giving them half of the floor to deal with so that they could overplay the guys who had the ball in their hands the most. And that was what made it difficult. Like Nikola Jokic was basically taunting the Clippers and saying, yeah, Nico Batum's probably going to start game 7. Like, that's what it came down to. And Nico was really good, but Nico was a non-threat inside the 3-point line offensively and defensively. He's valuable defensively, but over time, Nico's not the most physical defender. So now everything the Clippers have done this offseason, it's like you still have Derrick Jones Jr., but now you have Chris Paul, so you can have another guy who can handle the basketball and not play him too much. You have Bradley Beal, and the key with Bradley Beal is you started Chris Dunn partly because of his defense, but also partly so that James Harden had someone else he could give the ball to bring the damn thing up. And Norm couldn't be trusted to do that consistently. Like Chris was and that's why Chris started more than Derrick Jones Jr., because Derrick Jones Jr., not a strong ball handler, not a good passer. So it's like you start Chris Dunn so that offensively Chris can bring the ball up, and then James can just kind of focus on catching his breath and getting himself to the elbow and operating once the ball is already in the front court. Now you don't have to do that. You don't have to start Chris Dunn just to basically give James Harden a ball handling handcuff because Norman Powell couldn't do that. Brad should be able to do that. And that way you start whoever you start in the front court, whether that's Derrick Jones Jr. or now John Collins is on the team. Denver was able to take advantage of the fact that the Clippers straight ran out of reliable players to execute offensively. And also, Derrick was better defensively than Chris was. Chris, a lot of people talk about the fact that, yes, he was given the entire floor to make or miss shots. What Chris really struggled with is, and this became clear in game 5, Grace, this is the biggest difference between game 5 and game 7. Jamal Murray absolutely lit these dudes up in game 5.
Yeah.
He had his, I'm a playoff riser game in game 5. Yeah. There was, at that point, you can't justify starting Chris anymore. At that point, you're like, we got to do something different. And the difference is play Nico Batum more, but then that's why Derrick Jones Jr. started game 7.
So, I mean, you've already basically summarized it. Let's like talk about the Clippers offseason. And I think that this team went through about as much transformation, arguably more than any other team in the league besides the Boston Celtics, who kind of dismantled their team, of any non-Houston Rockets team, because they literally added Kevin Durant. But I mean, outside of that, I think the Clippers, like, in terms of just the sheer number of new players that they have on their team, that will
new
be
good players,
new players that will be playing, right? This isn't back end guys, right? Almost no, like I said, almost no other team, changed more than the Clippers did this summer. So my question to you about adding Brook Lopez, trading for John Collins, and that involved moving Norman Powell, adding Bradley Beal, who I think is sort of universally thought to be, whether or not it's going to be in the same volume, but effectively filling the role that Norm Powell did, and then adding Chris Paul to the team. Do you consider every one of these moves to be a straight up, no questions upgrade from what they had there? Or do you see some of these moves as more lateral?
Brad to Norm. See, everyone focuses on, you lose Norm to get both John and Brad. And it's like, I don't really see it that way. Obviously that's the case, but I don't really see it that way. Like, it's not a bad move to get Bradley Beal, especially for the price that you're getting them.
Right.
Norman Powell was better than Brad, and Norman Powell's in a better situation than Brad, but it is also to say Bradley Beal as a scale up scorer, he hasn't done that in several years. He never really did it in Phoenix. Like, I think he had 130-point game all of last year, Grace. All of last season. Norm had, I think, 9 30-point games playing without Kawhi, So I think that's going to be a thing where if you're relying on Brad to step up when Kawhi needs to miss games, Brad needs to reestablish that he can do that, because even when he got a chance to play without one of Book or KD, it didn't happen, It just didn't happen. But that being said, you're absolutely like getting Bradley Beal is what makes parting with Norm palatable to get a guy like John Collins. Like, John Collins is basically replacing Amir Coffey. That is clearly an upgrade. Amir wasn't in the rotation in the playoffs. He didn't play a single minute. He didn't play garbage time in the playoffs. Amir just got a training camp deal in Milwaukee, which I think is still just an absurd state of affairs in the NBA.
I think that's crazy, honestly.
It's insane. Like, Amir Coffey was one of 33 players to make at least 100 threes while shooting those threes at 40%. How many teams are in the NBA again, Grace?
30.
Yeah, so that means that's an average of one of those players per team, and that means there's not you can't say that there are a lot of teams that have 2 of those guys. The Clippers had 2 of those guys, Amir Coffey and Norm Powell. They're both gone. So Bradley Beal, as good as he is a very different player than Norm, and he's got to show and reestablish that he has that same value. But yeah, you're taking John Collins over Amir Coffey, especially considering that you have a lot of Amir Coffey types on your team, and you specifically did not have a John Collins type on your team ever since Blake Griffin was traded in the dead of night to the Detroit Pistons. So that represents a major shift in how the Clippers can line up. There will be adjustments with John Collins because he's not anywhere close to a perfect kind of player. I don't think he's even a perfect fit. There's going to be adjustments. Like, what John Collins does well, he does obviously well. It's like getting hit by a goddamn hammer. But what John Collins doesn't do as well requires you to actually watch John Collins on a regular basis, something that I guarantee no Clipper fan, not a lot of NBA fans, have actually done. Like, he's been playing in Atlanta and he played in Utah for the past 2 years. In other words, he played a lot of his games in absentia because neither of those teams in the last few years were worth a damn or playing for anything. John's about to be playing for something for the first time in 5 years. So that's going to be something to watch. How well does he adjust to actually being asked to defend on a team that is going for something? Can he defend on the perimeter reliably? Can he be in the right spots at the right times? If you give him the ball more, is his assist to turnover ratio going to improve? How real is that jumper? There's a lot of questions. The exciting thing is there's reason to believe that John has some answers that the Clippers need. When you look at Brook Lopez, Ben Simmons was the backup center for the LA Clippers in the playoffs. Grace, did you see Ben Simmons as that series went along?
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's doing some good stuff early, and then later on, I was like, oh, is he not playing anymore?
Yeah, exactly. So now,
and I remember which game was it? Where was it? Game 7? I guess he wouldn't have been playing, but there was a game where he airballed like a 5-foot.
That was game 5.
That was game 5.
That was the last time anyone saw Ben.
Okay.
The last time anyone saw Ben, unless you check his IG stories and you see him fishing. That's the last time. And so the Clippers, they got extremely fortunate. Like, let me tell y'all why Chris Paul and Brook Lopez are here. I understand that those guys are going to be on Social Security a lot sooner than you know it. But the thing with these guys are Chris Paul is coming to this team to be a backup. Like, he started all 82 games for the Spurs last year. He's not going to be coming here to start. That has been outlined. There's going to be nights where Chris doesn't play at all. Like, he won't be in the rotation. Like his minutes are going to be at a career low, but now you have a professional point guard who can win. Like James is going to need time. That dude just ran off some serious usage last year. And to think that he's going to be able to bounce back as quickly to start this year is probably a fool's errand. He's going to need more relief than he got last year. It was fortunate that the Clippers got so many games and so many minutes and so many touches out of James. But now you have a guy who, if you really need him, he's still in great shape, even though he's 40 and small. With Brook, it was even more like the Clippers got lucky that Ivica Zubac played as much as he did and played as many games as he did. Because if he would have even tweaked an ankle and had to miss a week, the Clippers would have been in a play-in tournament easy. Okay? Like Ivica Zubac's backups, besides Ben, who obviously Ben is a unique basketball player who can kind of switch in more depending on your lineups. But the traditional backup centers were literally Mo Bamba and Drew Eubanks. Like, what are we doing here? Like, they were very fortunate to get as much out of Zoo. Now you're not under as much pressure because you fortified that position. You didn't have a real backup center last year. Now you have a guy who not only was starting for a playoff team last year, but is one of the best combinations of rim protector and three-point shooter at the center position, period, of all time. So all of these are relative upgrades. The difference for the Clippers is you played desperate basketball because people clowned you for losing Paul George for nothing and for having an older star and an injured star. And they came out with the energy. Denver, Colorado saw this the first weekend of the season. You know, they came out with the energy that they were going to be way better than anyone thought they would be. And when you have that desperation, when you have that chip on your shoulder, when you know that you're not good enough offensively to just out-talent teams to wins, you will be better defensively because your attention to detail tells you going into the games, if you don't defend, you don't win. And if you don't win in the Western Conference for a couple of weeks, you're hoping you're in the play-in tournament. And so the Clippers had that energy. They had the bodies. They weren't good offensively at all, but they had a bunch of dudes who are going to play hard and be athletic. They have fewer of those bodies and less urgency because they are more talented. And I think that will affect them on the defensive end. And I just wonder to how much of a degree that it will affect them.
So pending the Golden State Warriors doing literally anything this offseason. Anything at all. The Clippers
It'll be September in 2 weeks.
That's insane. The Clippers are going to be either the first or second oldest team in the NBA. And I've seen you actually make the case that in the totality of all these depth additions that the Clippers have made, these are good, would be rotation players in any team in the NBA, guys that they've got basically 1 through 10, right? And that those additions basically outweigh any age concerns with this team. No doubt, though, that the age of the core rotation, especially with Harden and Kawhi, like the most important players on the team, with the exclusion of probably Zubac, will have some kind of negative impact on the season, no matter how small, though. Do you think that the age concerns with this team will be more, will manifest themselves more in the regular season or in the postseason?
For me, it's the postseason. There's so many guys on this team. And so I look at their top 11. I've been calling it Pacific Ocean's 11, still waiting on somebody to get that on a t-shirt. And there are 3 guys among that 11 who I would say, if they don't play on a given night, they're going to be cool. Brook Lopez, who I think plays close to every night that he's available, but he's backing up the most durable guy on the team in Ivica Zubac. So you don't expect to need 20 minutes a game out of him. And then Chris Paul, who we just discussed, there are plenty of guards on his team, but he's great to have on the team, period, at this point. And then Nico Batum. I think there are nights where, Nico will be, 37 in December, and there's nights that you don't need him. The Clippers have been managing Nico Batum for years, certainly last year. They don't need him to play a lot. So you're talking about guys who you're never going to be concerned about playing too many minutes. In the middle of that group are guys like Chris Dunn, Bogdanovic, guys who they're not that old, you know what I mean? And they're not going to be asked to start a lot of their games. And then there's at the top there, Brad and James and Kawhi. Like those guys are, they're older, they're along in their careers, but Brad is younger than Norm, like if you were concerned about Norm last year from an age standpoint, well, Brad's at least a little younger. Now I'm more concerned with Brad's durability because Brad hasn't stayed healthy at all in the last 4 years. That's a bigger concern to me. With James, my bigger concern is given not just his age, but the workload. How much are you having him work? But you have a little bit more protection with James now than you did a year ago. Kawhi, this time a year ago, Kawhi was losing a gold medal because his knee wasn't right. He didn't debut until January. Everything that we've seen is that Kawhi is happy and healthy, and you saw how he finished last year. Whatever the knee issues were a year ago, they are in a better place now, but you're never going to be completely comfortable with Kawhi Leonard. That's just like not how you go about business. I don't expect Kawhi to play back-to-backs,
Right. And even like 23-24, he played the most games that he played in years. And I was
and what did that lead to?
And well, then he was gone forever the rest of the season until he came back in the playoffs, and we were like, whoa.
And was a shell of himself.
Done that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they have enough guys, and that's what you need, Grace. You need the bodies. You need the players. You need to people need to understand that in the NBA, just because they don't make the national broadcast TV partners make their decisions, the NBA regular season goes as far as basically guys 9 through 13 on your depth chart goes. If those guys can play real minutes and get you in and out of weeks during the regular season, you're going to be a good team. If those guys are trash, then you're going to disappoint. Ask the Sixers, ask the New Orleans Pelicans how that went, right? And so I think the Clippers have more than enough guys to get through the regular season given their concerns. When it comes to playoff time, some of those guys aren't going to play just because of matchups. Brook Lopez might be played off the floor. Chris Paul might be played off the floor, whatever. When it comes to the playoffs, it's about your best guys to me. And it's going to come down to, is James Harden going to be good enough, and is Kawhi Leonard going to be good enough? And in the recent years, those guys are good enough to win a game or two. You saw Kawhi and what he did in game 2. You saw James Harden and what he did in game 6. Those guys are capable of being great from time to time. But are they going to be great to eliminate good teams in the West multiple times? That is a question that I don't think the Clippers are, they're going to have to show it. And that means that I think they have improved their playoff roster, but the playoff roster doesn't come down to Bradley, Beal, and John Collins. It comes down to the guys who are going to be influencing you the most, your best players. And those are the guys that I'd be most worried about. But I'd be worried about them even if they didn't sign Chris Paul and Brook Lopez, and they signed guys like Malachi Flynn or Jackson Hayes just because they happen to be younger guys.
Right. Absolutely. I actually like that you started the framing here because, I have a section here about quote unquote difference makers.
Yeah.
And you're mostly talking about these back end rotation guys as, especially useful for teams in the regular season. But let's talk more about what this looks like in a playoff setting. So I started thinking about this idea of difference makers within your depth chart. This is outside of your stars, whether you're 1 and 2 or you're 1 through 3 dudes. During the Nuggets Clippers series, because heading into that series, a lot of analysts the ones who did pick the Clippers to win that series, basically said some version of, well, the Clippers are deeper, or the Nuggets have the best player, but the Clippers are the better team. Once we get into the series, even if I wanted to argue that LA had the better bench, let's say 7 through 8, because if we're being real, Russ, as Denver's, 6th man and basically giving like 4th/5th man production in that series, was outperforming the combined force of the Clippers bench, right? But Peyton Watson, basically the only other guy off the bench that was getting real minutes outside of that starting lineup, right?
Right.
LA had Ben Simmons for most of that series, through that airballed floater in game 5. coming in very strictly for defensive purposes, and I thought he basically fulfilled those very well. Bogdan Bogdanovic, who had a massive moment in that series, and it would have been like heralded had the Clippers won Game 4, of course, right? But the totality of his series is that he was pretty up and down, but playable. And then Nicholas Batum, who was my worst fear that entire series. Once I saw that Norman Powell was less of a, every game kind of threat, right? Right up until the Game 7 buzzer, I was terrified that Nicholas Batum was going to come back and win this series for the Clippers, right? But it was also evident that in terms of like steady production in the middle of your rotation, or what I would consider the top of your depth, again, the guys below your top stars, Denver's guys were outperforming the Clippers pretty handily, even though they had fewer of them, right? Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, and even one-armed MPJ. We talked about the production that they were able to give Denver and the impact on the offensive glass and the defensive glass, right? Norm Powell, like I said, struggled. And Derek Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn were being exploited offensively and effectively played off the floor for pretty important stretches of that series relative to what you might think their roles would be given how important they were for the Clippers in the regular season. Now, the Clippers had eight dudes that could play, and Denver really had like 6.5, depending on how much you thought Peyton Watson should have been playing in that series. But the Clippers bench was largely making up for the production deficit suffered by the back end of their starting lineup, because, like I said, Norm was struggling. Harden himself was up and down, right, throughout that series as well. Now, how do you think about these discussions about depth and quote unquote quality depth when it comes to a question of having more guys that you can play in a variety of situations versus more guys that they themselves can play in a variety of situations, if that makes sense? Where you have, if maybe you have a few guys that are more versatile and you know they're going to be able to contribute something in a variety of situations versus okay, when this guy is off, I can plug in, this other guy from the back end of the rotation.
Yeah, it's about an optionality, Grace. That was the buzzword for me all spring. Looking at both that series, Clippers Nuggets specifically, and the entire 2025 postseason across the NBA in both the East and the West. Optionality is what you want, because there are some guys who are going to be great for a series, and then there are going to be some guys who are not great for a series. Sometimes we find out those guys are great within a series and they get played off. Some guys, they don't start a series in a rotation, and as a rotation, as the series goes along, they get thrown out there and they show that they're the X factor, they're the difference maker. Like, the Nuggets were always going to have a limited just pool of players to choose from. Like, they barely survived that series, and Russell Westbrook playing with the kind of hate that comes with facing your old team immediately after they traded you, after you opted into your player option.
And not everybody can play with the energy necessary to sustain that level of hate, but it's Russell Westbrook. And he is, if there's any player in the NBA that is an Energizer bunny, it is him.
Exactly. Like, the fact that he just had played on that team decided multiple games, he knew and felt what guys were doing based off of where they were on the floor, and just understanding how the ATOs go, how the actions go. And the Clippers are already a relatively easy team to understand where guys are at, because they're the most ISO heavy team, that's why you get James Harden starting the series as well as he did. And even though the Nuggets weren't known for great point of attack defense, Christian Brown got better and more confident as that series went along, because he had Russ in his ear. Because you look at James, and his points and his volume just decreased every game until Game 6, when he needed to empty the tank, and he couldn't replenish that tank in Game 7. The Clippers had more guys, but those guys didn't play their best basketball, and really Denver's best guys didn't play their best basketball. Again, Nikola had his most challenging series, I would say, in the last 5 years against the Clippers. Jamal was great in game 5, but other than that, like Jamal was kind of up and down and going through it. David Adelman literally had to call Michael Porter Jr. out after a win. You know what I mean? Like, and then Michael Porter Jr. jacked his shoulder up. The guy who was best in that series to me was Aaron Gordon. And why was he the best? Because the Clippers had a really good roster, but they were missing the one dude who could deal with that guy. You know, James Harden could defend power forwards credibly enough during the regular season where he clearly wasn't breaking a top 5 defense, but he couldn't deal with Aaron Gordon. We saw that in game 1 when James had 5 fouls, and that affected his offense as that game went along. The Clippers were in control of that game, but James was hesitant with his drives because he was in the kind of foul trouble that comes with wrestling that dude. You know, Kawhi Leonard's a really good defender on paper and on reputation, but they stuck Kawhi Leonard on Aaron Gordon, and it was a draw. Those dudes, look at game 7 and look what Aaron Gordon did and look what Kawhi did. And they canceled each other out, which was the wrong time for the Clippers to be canceled out by Aaron Gordon, you know? So when you look at depth and you look at the playoffs and how you build these teams, you know, like I said, regular season, you need enough pro basketball players to survive. I don't want to hear no BS about, oh, we were missing our best player for a couple of weeks. Oh, we had 4 rotation guys out over the course of February. I don't want to hear any of that crap because it gives other guys an opportunity to step up, play, and it gives your coaching staff an opportunity to just make do with what you have. But in the playoffs, that's why you guys miss time in the regular season, so that come spring, all those nicks and bruises, you're not telling anybody that you're hurt anymore. You know, every game is a game closer to the end of somebody's season, and it best not be you. And so in the playoffs, it's just about having and knowing, you know, everything from the regular season. I don't care if the dude was on your team 5 years ago or if the dude just showed up 5 weeks before the playoffs started. You know what you've got by the time the playoffs start. You know who can do what, or you should know if you're a competent, not dysfunctional team. And so you need to understand who's going to help you in a playoff series. And it's best to have more of those guys, even if you wind up cutting your rotation down to 8 or 9 players.
Yeah, I think I've sort of wrestled with this question because I've gotten, you know, conflicting information. Because I do think that depth is important, but I also think the idea of having a top-heavy rotation has sort of been blown a little bit out of proportion because of some extreme examples in the case of I don't know, the Celtics last year and the Nuggets more recently.
If those teams are beating the hell out of you, Grace, like the Denver Nuggets starting 5, or most of those guys in the starting 5, what did they do, Grace? They probably outscored you by close to 10 points per 100 possessions a game. If that's how good that lineup is, all you're asking everybody else who breaks that lineup apart is to not screw the game up to the point where you're losing it. But if that's the cushion you're working with, you don't need as many guys.
Yeah. That's the thing with Denver this last year, is that the issues that they faced, particularly in the playoffs, were very different than the issues they faced in previous years, where a lot of people are still kind of talking about these non-Jokic minutes. And I'm like, they were not great in the playoffs, but they were not like their main problem. Actually, in the Clippers series, those minutes when it was Jokic and not necessarily all 5 starters together were crushing the Clippers, because those were the minutes when Russ came in and the Clippers could not keep up with the athleticism, right? They were getting absolutely destroyed on all these different margins in those minutes. OKC series comes along and we're talking about negatives that I have not seen on cleaning the glass in my time covering the Nuggets. I'm talking about lineups where I'm like, Jokic is on the floor and they're like minus 50 net. What is going on here? And that's like small sample size, matchup questions, all of this, you know, different stuff. But then you're looking in both of these series still, okay, the starting lineup is a plus 11 net still. So like, what am I supposed to do with that, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like all of the players that come in, all those lineups that come in to that break that up, whether it's a non-Jokic or like Jokic is on and you're just staggering with him, whatever. Your job is to not get beat by that much. Like,
Right.
let's just like find like a steady, presence there.
Right.
Which is what we've talked a lot about when it comes to Denver's offseason in particular. So the last topic that I want to cover with the Clippers offseason, though, is size, because I do think it's the story of the Western Conference offseason this year. The Clippers are one of 14 Western Conference teams that have actively invested in their center depth this summer. RIP the Golden State Warriors. And just a spoiler alert for Saturday, they are getting a big fat incomplete for their offseason from me. And the Clippers did so by signing Brook Lopez, as you have elaborated on in this discussion, right?
Right.
I want to know how you think the Clippers match up with Denver now. Do you even attribute last year, first of all, to a matchup issue outside of just the Aaron Gordon of it all? Aaron Gordon versus no other like true power forward of it all. And two, if you think so, because you think Brook Lopez will just be playing more opposite Zubac, or because you might see a lot of like super like maybe even triple big lineups where you've got like Kawhi at shooting guard and Brook Lopez playing the four with Zubac on the floor. I know we're talking about Ty Lue here, but you know him better than anybody on this show anyway. So what do you think about that particular matchup and how the size question comes into it?
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing, first of all, what the approach will be in the preseason, because the Nuggets actually visit the Clippers before the regular season starts. But they also will see the Clippers on November 12th. Now, people who have covered the Clippers for a while know that Tyronn Lue likes to give himself a 10-game sample size when he comes out of training camp with a set group of starters and an expanded rotation. Well, guess where the Nuggets are in the regular season schedule? They are game 11. So they will be at home visiting, or the Clippers will be at home visiting, hosting the Nuggets for the end of that 10-game sample size. And I'm fascinated to see both what Tyronn Lue decides coming out to start the regular season, whether I got my suggestions. I feel like Derrick Jones Jr. needs to start because he is the best combination of shooting, athleticism, and point of attack defense to go with Kawhi, James, Zoo, and Bradley Beal, the four guys who I know will start. Or if he goes with John Collins, who I know that James Harden and Kawhi Leonard would be happy to start with John Collins. I know Zoo wouldn't mind, but I feel like that puts Bradley Beal as your point of attack defender. And it also gives you so many mouths to feed offensively. Like Zoo emerged as a real offensive presence as the season, really immediately, but especially as the season went along. So that guy's the only guy in the league who got more post touches than Zoo, I believe, was Nikola Jokic. I don't think there was another guy. Maybe if Joel played a full complement of games, but we know he didn't. So, I don't think people realize just how many post touches Ivica Zubac's got. That's a real part of your offensive identity. So now, if you got him and you got you're starting your Kawhi, you're starting your James, you're trying to get Brad help, feeling confident because that dude's playing for money as well as a ring. John Collins is sitting there as an overqualified fifth option, potentially, because anybody else who's a fifth option, you're like, what the heck are we doing? Or you can just start Derrick Jones Jr. there. And Derrick Jones Jr., it's like you don't care how many touches that dude gets, right? Like you're not asking him to do anything except for dunk and shoot threes. So I'm interested to see what that decision winds up being to start the year, how that sample size comes about over 10 games. And when the Nuggets visit Intuit Dome on November 12th, what changes there might be that we might be seeing for the first time. And so right now, the Clippers and Nuggets, I believe, are only scheduled to play each other 3 times the entire season. We'll see with the NBA Cup results in, because now we're 2 for 2 in the Clippers and
Right.
Nuggets having that extra game on this schedule.
Thankfully, not in the same group, so we won't get a repeat game from those two again this year. And we were just
We
talking
might.
last episode about how that makeup game basically gave the Nuggets home court.
They weren't in the same group last year, and they wound up, the makeup game wound up having the Clippers visit Denver. Nah, the year before it was a cup game.
Oh,
But in 2024 it wasn't.
From outside the groups now.
Exactly. So like you just don't know. You just got to see how it goes. Like that decided home court advantage in the 4-5. You know what I mean? So
it sure did.
The Clippers should be considering the Nuggets games the most important games on their, to start before you kind of get an identity of the league, right? Like 20 games in, we're going to reshuffle the deck. But like that November game is going to be like the biggest game on the Clippers schedule as far as I'm concerned. Like in a playoff series, the Clippers are a lot better to deal with the Nuggets today than they were in April and May. And that's not to say, look, the Nuggets, obviously, they made the moves that they made. The biggest one, getting Cameron Johnson on their team. Cameron Johnson, I think, should be an intriguing and very exciting fit for the Denver Nuggets, in part because he's not going to take things off the table that Michael Porter Jr. takes off the table, including but not limited to saying dumb stuff. Like, you don't got to police that anymore. Like, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. I don't think you imagine you want to. I've had, not criticisms, just observations about the other side to acquiring Cam and losing Michael Porter Jr. in that, like, I've watched a lot of Cameron Johnson. I love his game. And I do like his fit with Denver, but he makes Denver less physically imposing than Michael Porter Jr. did. In a variety of ways. And in a matchup with the Clippers had to really be concerned with the fact that you had a skyscraper shooting threes and crashing and cutting and finishing, and you have a more conventional sized player in Cameron Johnson. You're not as concerned with those things with a Cameron Johnson. That might be an issue for other teams, but for the Clippers, they'll welcome not having to deal with a guy who doesn't crash as aggressively or effectively as Michael did. With Cameron Johnson, there's the durability thing that I've brought up before. Like, Cam has missed a ton of games over the past few years. Michael Porter Jr. has a big pre-existing condition, but whatever Denver's medical staff did to manage that and have him playing was really critical, because a team as thin as the Denver Nuggets didn't have to worry about Michael Porter Jr. missing a ton of games over the last few years. That's going to be something where no one's going to talk about, but if something happens to Cameron Johnson, you're going to hear a bunch of thoughts and prayers and whatnot. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. now.
We in Nuggets world are absolutely talking about that.
Yeah, so like that's the thing where it's like the Nuggets ceiling is very exciting, but I think the Clippers, looking at the fact that they basically got pulverized in critical categories in this series, they were very aggressive at addressing them, and they addressed them about as well as you could possibly ask them to. And that's why the regular season matters. The regular season matters because you get these data points over the course of 82 games, because even the bad teams do something really well. Even the bad teams have guys like John Collins or Cameron Johnson, who you're looking at over the course of a year, and you're like, that guy could help us. I'm very excited for the season overall, and I'm actually very excited to see both how the Clippers and Nuggets react to one another in a regular season setting, and God forbid those teams play in the playoffs.
What is one aspect of the Clippers that we did not talk about today that you think is going to surprise people next year based on the current perception of the team?
I am really surprised that they got overlooked to the extent they did from a national broadcast standpoint. Like, that team is low-key incredibly volatile. Like, they do have a
maybe that's why.
It's part why, but they're not the only team in the West. We keep talking about the damn Warriors. They don't even have enough guys to fill out a depth chart right now. So, like, the Lakers won one playoff game. I mean, the Lakers are a bad example. The Warriors are too. But the point is, like, all the teams in the West are on some level have glaring flaws, including the team that won the damn championship. Like only one of them got singled out from we're not featuring you nationally like the Clippers did. But they're a big story
like
because
they got fewer games than the Mavs.
Yeah, like people believing in Dallas because they have the number one pick is just like you're trying to sell people in Cooper Flag. Like there's no way any sane basketball person trusts the Dallas Mavericks. Like that's just crazy to me. But whatever. I don't think the Clippers players care about national TV games, but what they do care about is how good can that team be early? And really, if they face any kind of adversity, what do they do about it? Because that's a coach now, because of how humiliating and embarrassing not just game 4 was, but game 7 was. They brought out the entire wall to Ball Arena just so that they could watch their team get smacked by 35 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
I felt bad for those fans.
I mean, you know, I hope they enjoy the flight.
I mean, they got to watch, you know, watch some.
They got to see it for themselves.
But like
exactly. But, so my thing is like the relationships with the Clippers organization are really strong. Like this is a team where people, you know, if you only follow the one team that you watch and you don't really look at everybody else except to say what you don't have, look at them. They play young players. It's like your team traded years of drafts away to get guys like that's not your team anymore. Okay. You can't be that team. Like Tyronn Lue is on a bit of a hot seat, and it's not because he's got a bad relationship with, you know, the rest of the brain trust. Like it's actually one of the strongest relationships in the NBA between ownership, front office, and head coach. But when you lose like that, you're basically saying you're all in your positions to bounce back from this. So I expect the Clippers to, in a certain way, bounce back. But if there's a chance that they don't, and there's some fissures in that relationship, and I saw those fissures 3 years ago, they've worked really hard to patch those things up. But if they resurface, what does that mean for not just the coach? What does that mean for the front office? What does that mean for the stars? Because you're old, people think of loss of performance. No, being old means you have fewer years to get anything done. You're closer to the end. You can be great, but because you're old, you could say, I'm done. I'm not playing basketball anymore. James Harden can play at a high level next year and decide he's not playing anymore. I don't think that's happening. I'm just bringing this up. Like, you're playing for something different when you have this many guys that are old on your team. All those guys are entering contract decisions in the next year or two. If you're winning, it's kumbaya and everybody stays on the straight and narrow. But in the Western Conference, that can get crazy. And the Clippers experienced that last year, the year before, and the year before that. So that's the thing that, again, everyone talks about being old and it relating to performance. No, being old just means guys are a lot more understanding that they're on borrowed time to do something special. And we're going to see just how the Clippers react to that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Law, for coming on the show and joining us today. This was a really insightful conversation.
Will, you got your work put out for you, man.
Yeah, Will's going to have some editing to do for sure. Tell the people where they can find you and your work when they want to catch more of it. I know you've also been doing this series on YouTube about the weaknesses of the teams that missed the playoffs and the strengths of the teams that made the playoffs last year and what to look out for next season as well.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of basketball games. So shout out to you for noticing.
I caught those and I'm like, okay, this is a deep cut from the archives, the game you chose for the representative film here.
Yeah. Like I love basketball. Like I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna let people know that. So I mean, I've been putting that series out, and I know y'all been missing it because my views are absolutely horrendous. But help me get my views up. Help me, because this is an ongoing conversation, right? Like when training camp starts, we'll talk about some things. When the regular season starts, we'll talk about some things. when the cup ends and everybody's contracts get tradable, we gonna talk all of a sudden. There's gonna be different conversations. That's why this regular season, like, there are no dog days to me. Like, all of these games and points matter either in the short term, the long term, or, down past this season. So shout out to The Athletic. They put me in position to do some really cool things and some things that honestly I've never done before. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to y'all being on this journey with me.
Absolutely. Well, everybody go follow Law online on Twitter. Check out his YouTube channel as well. Thanks again for being on the show. All right. We are ready to do our little switch up here. So Law, you can go ahead and exit the studio.
Thank you, Law.
There's Will. And then we're going to move on to our last segment of the stream.
All right. Well, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Will. Appreciate y'all.
Of course. All right. I'm all broken up here. Well, all right. Switching back. Oh no, am I gone?
It should be able to get you back.
That was a really fun discussion. Hopefully this switch doesn't take too long, guys. So can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yeah, they can still hear you. I'm getting you up.
Okay, good. Well, while I'm a floating voice, that's fun. We are going to do a little mini film session from the Serbia-Germany friendly. So that's fun. Let me do a quick, let me post that on social medias. So maybe some people see it. Yeah, that was a fun discussion with Law. What did you think of that talk?
It was great. I liked what he said about the matchups and just reliving the game 4 of the playoffs was great. For some reason, when I do this, I can see you, but then you go away. Weird. 1 sec. 1 sec, chat.
One day we'll figure out this transition, guys. The real ones are hanging around for the behind the scenes. They like knowing how the sausage gets made.
Mm-hmm. It should work in 1 sec. Craziness. We're just going to start from scratch. You can see all the behind the scenes, chat. I don't know why it was working and then not working.
Oh, well. One day. That's how these things go, right?
Yep. All right. Basically there. Gonna do some Serbia-Germany now. That'll be great.
Yeah, I was actually... We good? Almost?
Pretty good.
I was really excited, actually, as I was doing my little film review to see how much of this game I wanted to actually break down versus just kind of touching on some big points. But there were a lot of really interesting possessions in this game because it was 2 very high-level teams relative to the Eurobasket field. Of course, Germany is the reigning world champions from the FIBA World Cup a couple of years ago. Serbia beat them in the bronze medal game in the Olympics last year. And so that's kind of becoming a little bit of a rivalry. Maybe not. I don't know how the Europeans view that one, but they're no doubt 2 of the teams that are the top sort of favorites to win Eurobasket this year. And regardless of not being in the same group, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to meet at some point in the knockout rounds, whether it's in the finals or maybe earlier, depending on how the bracket shakes out. Okay, so let's talk about this friendly. So Serbia beat Germany. I was pretty comfortably in this game, 91-81, which actually also made them winners of this like mini tournament that the first few friendlies were a part of, called the DBB Super Cup, apparently. So Serbia wins that. And this friendly game was the finals of the DBB Super Cup. So that's another trophy to add to Jokic's resume, I guess. So Germany's a really good team was my main takeaway this entire game. And they were down most of this game, but it never felt like Serbia was like pulling away. I think that it felt like Serbia was comfortable, but I never felt like Germany couldn't come back because they were mostly getting good stuff because of Serbia's, again, waning and waxing defensive execution throughout the game. So Germany was getting like good stuff on offense for the most part. Their defense is really what kind of tanked them in this game. We're going to talk about it, but I'm really worried about how they're going to deal with like true interior scoring threats from other teams that aren't Team Serbia with, the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic on it, right? But let's first talk about this possession. I think it's called Germany dead possession or Germany saved here. So oh no.
All right, here we go.
Germany. So, okay, on this possession, Germany's basically not getting anything. Side pick and roll. Point guard gets iced, forced baseline, out of bounds, has to kick to the corner, kicks back to Obst, who passes back to the guy who just got kicked out of bounds and then just touch passes it back to him and gets a floater out of it. Like, this was a possession where it felt like nothing was really going. And they were still able to get something good out of it. They actually closed this quarter, I thought, pretty strong, even though Serbia in the fourth quarter was able to keep them at mostly arm's length, with like one exception. There was a possession or two possessions in a row where the ball got stolen in the backcourt for a layup. And I'm like, 4 points in 5 seconds. Not good.
Yeah, Milutinov also got bumped on this play.
Oh, is he? Yeah, this is some Milutinov minutes going on here.
He was like jumping on one leg, so he could barely play defense, which allowed the ball to really move around in the
wasn't able
interior.
To contest. Like nobody's really around Obst at that point in the possession, right?
Yeah, this game. Yeah. Like, I mean, I know he got injured on this one, but this game was sloppy at times, like just sloppy defensive coverages from both teams, and then sometimes just amazing shot making, amazing downhill drives from very athletic players. And so like that clip just reminds me of the whole game entirely, because you just didn't know when people were going to be super on point and when they were just blowing coverages that you don't expect. But when you don't like play with these guys all the time, it's expected that often you will maybe make the wrong play or be in the wrong spot. They're not scouting these teams like extensively, even if you're aware of, and you're not even sure what the rotations are going to be. Like Jokic not being in there in the fourth quarter or when it got kind of close for a while was pretty interesting. Not to jump ahead, but yeah.
No, go ahead. And like to your point about the like scouting and everything. And we talked about this the last time we talked about a Serbia friendly, how Pesic might be doing vastly different game plans in these games compared to the actual tournament. But apparently even like within the friendlies, because the last time I think we talked about this, I forget who Serbia was playing, but my point was like they're spamming, especially Jokic in the post, but Milutinov too. In this game, Jokic barely got any touches, like deep, at least deep in the post, like deep post touches in this game. And I thought for the first like 2.5 quarters, he was pretty like, not like passive necessarily, but like not involved, right? It was like, okay, well, you guys play around me. I'll play decoy, over here. So completely different approach. So I think that approach had less to do with scouting of the particular team, because like I said, I'll talk about like Jokic's stat line in this game. He had 7 points, whatever. So it's like, you see that stat line and you're worried about Germany's interior defense. Well, I think the stat line had more to do with Serbia's game plan than Germany's defense. Right. But they did have a lot of good things going for them. Like Franz Wagner looked extremely comfortable in this game against every defender, against every coverage. He was mostly cooking in isolation and pick and roll. So I wonder if there's going to be a point where they like send more to him, like if they play at later stages in the tournament. But he finished the game with a game high 26 points, which is a lot in a 40-minute game where he only played probably less than 30 minutes, right? But right, to my point about the interior finishing or Germany's vulnerability to interior threats, I thought this was a really good Milutinov game offensively.
I know, I was gonna say
in a
that.
way, it was like, oh, I would be worried if I'm Germany. Milutinov had there were a couple finishes early in the game where I'm like, I've never seen him make a layup that was this contested. But then later in the game, it was just like, oh no, he looks comfortable now.
Yeah.
And
I really liked what he was doing.
Good. Right. But I've never seen him. Well, I've only been watching Team Serbia this is going to be the third summer in a row now. But I have never seen him play that well against a quality team. There's definitely been, weaker international competition that Team Serbia has played in these warm-ups or in group play, whatever, where Milutinov has a game for himself because they're just not playing any defense and he's getting very easy buckets, whatever. Never seen him play this well in terms of scoring, just comfort against a team of Germany's caliber. And that would definitely worry me if I'm Team Germany.
Definitely, because that's just some more sustainable minutes if Jokic wants some rest. And we're not used to seeing that as Nuggets fans. But I really liked what he was doing, even screening. I mean, him and Jokic were doing good, whether they needed to flip a screen or slip a screen off of a blitz coverage. And there are times where even Milutinov, he was screening and he was technically moving, and it almost looked like a moving screen on some degree, but it was more of a slip. He's slipping the screen, but he's kind of getting in the way of the defenders. Look, it's not a moving
screen because I didn't really set a screen. I was slipping.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah. So, but I just like that he was
blurry with this stuff.
Yeah. He was getting in the way of defenders and opening up shots for other Serbian shooters, and he was catching the ball in the post off some crazy passes and then passing it into the post too, which led to the defense collapsing and then another three being open. He did really good, and I was impressed with what he did and some big buckets.
Yeah.
And putbacks.
And it was very different. You could tell he was comfortable because his approach, even compared to what was their first friendly that was televised in some way, was against Greece, right? And we talked about how much Serbia was spamming the post with both him and Jokic in that game, especially deep post catches. Against Greece. And Greece's directive to their bigs was beat these guys up, just beat up Jokic, beat up Milutinov. And often Milutinov was just ready to kick out. He was like, okay, I'm going to look for the kick out pass. I'm going to try to draw the double kick out. And that's what he'd been doing in all of these games. In this game, he was like, no, I'm going to go up and score. And that was the first time I'd seen him do that in this series. And in particular, over the last 3 summers of watching Team Serbia, it's the first time that I've seen him do that successfully for over a consistent basis, again, against a quality team, right?
I mean, like you said, Jokic might, if you want to describe him as passive or whatever, just not being the
it felt like
head
the game plan. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like they were trying to get him the ball a lot.
Yeah,
and he
exactly.
was just no, right? It felt like they were just we're going to do something else in this game.
That's because I thought Serbia was really aggressive. Everyone, they when they attacked, they had success, and when Milutinov was assertive in the post, they still had more success. So I was impressed just with the whole team. That was quite a team victory. I
mean, let's talk about some of the other guys here. If you could bring up the bogey hook shot, it was a good combined game from Alexa Avramovic and Bogdan Bogdanovic in terms of their pick and roll.
This is the
bogey hook shot, please. Yeah.
I brought that up
about this. We'll talk about this pass. I just wanted to show that one to the people. 1 second. So this is gonna be a tough and one from Bogey.
For some reason, maybe it's at the end. I don't know. That you have the wrong clip in here. Sorry.
Oh, I do? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Bogey hit a really tough hook shot off of. Oh wait, but I screen recorded these. These aren't linked.
Let me see.
Oh, maybe it's just mislabeled. I watched each one to make sure that it was labeled right, but it was late. It was late last night when I was doing this. That's okay. Let's just go through the clips and then we'll talk about them in the order that they come up. We'll just do that because I'm pretty sure all of them are there, but even if they're mislabeled.
All right, yeah, let's go to another one.
Okay, so yeah, just play the clip and then I'll know what I need to say first.
Well, the skip pass was amazing. I mean, this was a beautiful pass. And
yeah. So this was incredible. Bogey has nothing on this possession. Pass to Jokic. He's in the corner, and he sees they're zoning up on him, and then I called this a quote unquote skip pass in my notes. If you could rewind that, well. Because I thought it was in the game, I thought it was a bad shot. It wasn't until I was rewatching that I realized, like, oh, he did that on purpose to get the game or get the ball to. Is that Vukcevic there or is that Petrushev? It's Vukcevic, the Tristan Vukcevic, who is with the Wizards now, one of Matt Moore's favorites, and who I liked actually since his draft combine. But I noted when seeing him play with Team Serbia here, like he has bulked up. He's spent his first 2 years in the NBA, like really bulking up now. He's playing power forward for Team Serbia, mostly, off the bench, coming in for Nikola Jovic, mostly playing next to Jokic, but also some minutes next to Milutinov, obviously. So he catches, drives, and then is able to, get the ball to Petrushev there for that little floater. And that was off of that's not going to be in Jokic's assists count for this game, which was, 7 assists in a relatively short game. But that was one of those like hockey assists that you would never think to count towards Jokic there. That was a pretty crazy one. Did you realize when you were watching this game, like the first time, that wasn't just like a missed, end of clock, like, oh, like he's getting trapped in the corner? It wouldn't have been crazy for him to just take a shot there because whatever. But instead, he's like, let me try to pass this to the guy on the opposite corner.
I thought it was a skip pass, but he kind of cocks his hand back on his shot, and it's the very long rainbow release that he has, and it was the same kind of motion on that pass. How did he miss that so badly?
That was my reaction in the moment.
Yeah, that camera angle, like the depth, you can't tell necessarily where the ball's heading from that angle, but I just kind of knew since the ball was loose and it was almost out of bounds and he had a bad position, he just has that court mapping awareness. He knows there's going to be a dude over there who's open. He's super tall. I think he could just see it, obviously, and he just launched it over there, and the ball just goes where Jokic wants the ball to go.
But there's other times where he's been like trapped in the corner and then he like takes a shot instead.
Yeah,
it's, like,
we've seen that
clock and whatever. So I don't think I've seen him do this in the NBA, like this over the half court skip pass. I've seen him it like corner to corner.
Yeah,
right?
not with this height, but he's definitely thrown some line drives in a similar fashion. Yeah,
but with this arc, I thought that was interesting. Kind of goes to the idea that Jokic is just kind of trying shit.
Yeah, I'm like, he was deferring a lot and trusting guys, and I think he was like, there's no need for me to take a really crazy contested three right now in this moment. I can just launch it over there, and it created a really good opportunity. So it was a good decision by him.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the next little clip here we've got.
All right, let's look at the no-look pass since we're on Jokic passes.
Hopefully it's the no-look pass.
Yeah, hopefully it is. This is the day of technical difficulties.
Okay, so this is the end of the game. Alexa gets nothing on this drive. Sayuk's like, okay, I'll just hold. Let's run pick and roll with Guduric. Dupe slips off the blitz, plays 4-on-3, gets that nice little dump off pass to Jovic. But it wasn't until on rewatch I realized that this was a no look. So watch. So Jovic is the one who gets the ball eventually, and he's being guarded by Franz Wagner. Watch Jokic and watch Franz Wagner. Watch the direction that Jokic's head is facing, and watch how lost Franz Wagner gets.
I like this flip of the screen. right from the start.
Yes.
They were really sending aggressive coverage on every Jokic screen, which is why I was questioning a little bit what their game plan was, because I'm like, they're getting out, either hedging or sending a guy to the ball on these Jokic screens, which allows him to slip just like this. And they kept doing it all at the end towards the fourth quarter.
Who is this? Is this, that's not Dennis. Is that Bonga who runs over to him? And Franz is also like, oh, where is he passing? So Jokic like turns his head towards that Alexa on the wing while Jovic cuts to the basket. And Franz is like, where's my guy again? And it's
it really did send Franz out. Like, you'd think he would just know someone's going to be cutting from there, but because Jokic does look back for a sec, it does bring him out. Or maybe he didn't even realize that there was a cutter coming because he's kind of moving towards the sideline. But yeah,
it felt like Germany was kind of confused as to who was supposed to be the low man in that situation also. Because you basically have a two-man action being guarded 4-on-2 in this situation. Because he also could have just kicked to Avramovic on the wing. He's being completely
both of those
ignored.
plays were open. He could have chosen whoever, but you're up by 10. There's only 20 seconds left. Get the easy dunk.
Yeah,
and it was cool to see. And then and that was Jovic, right?
Yeah,
who dunked
he
it.
Had
he had an amazing.
He actually had a team high 22 points, including a bunch of threes, and every three felt huge because, again, to me, I was like, this game is not, over at any point, even though I think Serbia led by as much as like 17 or 18 at one point, but that was very short-lived. It was mostly within the like 8 to 12 range for most of the game, and then it got pretty like tight in the middle of the fourth quarter, right? Especially again after those backcourt steals by Germany.
Oh my god!
By Franz Wagner in particular.
So annoying that the game was so close and it happened twice in a row. Right, if I remember correct, it was.
I think it was Dennis on one, and then Franz had the second one immediately after.
Yeah, that was getting scary.
So let's talk more about these slips out of pick and roll for Jokic here. Hopefully, this clip is the right one. The slip out of pick and roll for the floater. All right, so who is this? Guduric. And then they're like trying to blitz, or like soft switch, it looks like. And Jokic is like, they're not like guarding me in a way that means I can't, like, I have to set an actual screen because they're just giving you the advantage. The screen is there to create the advantage, but Germany's like, we're going to give you the advantage because we're going to try to like pre-soft switch this. So Jokic's like, okay, I'm just going to slip the screen and get into open space. And Guduric is able to get him the ball, and then we get the Jokic floater. And this was like Jokic's casual dominance late in this game, especially in the fourth quarter. But he had, some like that skip pass play was in particular in the third quarter. But it was really like, I think like 5 or 6 of his 7 points were in the fourth quarter, and they were all buckets. Like,
yeah. I mean, when people send two like that to the ball handler, Jokic is going to slip it. The corner's wide open. He could have hit the corner three right there or taken the floater, whatever he feels like doing in the moment. And that floater was amazing. And then I don't think the defender, the low man rotating, was expecting him to shoot it from there because he was kind of trying to cut the angle off a little closer to the basket. But Jokic just shot it immediately.
Vyacheslav. Oh yeah. How the heck do you know the names from the serving team? Because Vyacheslav, I get really bored in the summers and I watch these international competitions because I'm starved for basketball content.
Yeah.
And how am I going to watch the games if I don't know the names? Like,
mostly the Olympics last season is what got us a little more familiar with the other players.
Yeah. And even like, especially the Olympics, because even when I was watching the FIBA World Cup a couple years ago, I didn't know anybody besides Bogey and Milutinov because I was one of the people that was like, would Milutinov be a good backup center for the Denver Nuggets? But yeah, I learned everybody else's names basically for the Olympics last year. That's what happens when you pay attention, folks. You learn people's names and you don't call Zachary Risachet Rosh Hashanah. I gotta I got to rib Udonis Haslem for that a little bit because, like, come on, dude, come on.
He did that.
He did that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. That was like a bottom 10 ESPN moment of the year, which is saying something. Maybe a bottom 5. It wasn't great.
Mm-hmm. Well, we appreciate the approval from our Serbian fans. We love you guys, so we'll try our
names
best.
are names, Yeah, but that's all I had besides the missing hook shot, unfortunately. Sorry about that, Bogdan. That was a really sweet, I thought, and one hook shot off a drive, off a pick and roll when he was playing off of Jokic. So wish we could have shown that, but it's okay. I thought this was a pretty good game from Team Serbia because I thought the team just played well around Jokic. Like you said, they were aggressive and they got what they wanted. So I think Germany, if they face Team Serbia again, needs to really not rethink their defensive coverages because I think they tried a lot of different things in this game, but they need to just really shore up the execution if they are going to beat Serbia. Really, again, when it comes to the interior stuff, I worry about them against some of these other interior European bigs that these other teams are going to be playing. Turkey's not favored to make it very far in this competition, but I could see Alperen Şengün having a monster game against Team Germany if Milutinov was able to as well. So they need to look themselves in the mirror there.
Definitely. So it's going to be exciting. I did think Germany really tried to stay in it with their 3-point shot, and Franz was cooking, sure. And
though less so than who was the team? Was it Czechia that was taking? They had taken 43s in a 40-minute game, which is a lot, especially in FIBA.
Yeah, I know, I'm not sure, but
and it was their game plan. I feel like Germany was still trying to do the interior thing, and they were. Early in this game, I was like, what is this defense from Serbia? Because Germany, Dennis Schroeder was cooking them to get inside, and Franz was cooking, comfortable. And he was really comfortable the whole game. But I was worried about how many layups Serbia was giving up. But then that kind of, dried up throughout. And then Germany was forced to go more to the outside shot.
Right. When you're able to hit that shot consistently and all that, that's great. It got him in it early. And kept them in the game really. But yeah, I think Franz had more consistent success than Dennis, who airballed some shots. He was just much more consistent. They're a different caliber player, of course. So you can't necessarily judge them the same. But I just think it's going to be hard. Are they a different
caliber player when you're talking about international competition, though? This is Dennis Schroeder reigning FIBA World Cup Finals MVP.
Yeah. Are you worried about Latvia or Lithuania, who can get really hot from
Latvia? I think is a real sleeper. They, I think, didn't end up qualifying for the Olympics last year, if I recall correctly. But when they played in the World Cup, they played without Porzingis, and they were a really tough team to beat because they were really scrappy defensively, and they could get really hot with their jump shooting, not just from 3. And now they have Porzingis back. So I think they might be a bit of a sleeper to go further than people think in this competition as well. I think in the World Cup, they weren't even favored to get out of their group. And I think they made it to, they didn't medal, but they made it to the semi, I think maybe not Final 4, but Final 8, maybe Final 4. I need to double check. It's been a couple of years, guys. But yeah, I would worry about Latvia. Absolutely. They are not one to be trifled with. And I've seen them moving up, FIBA puts out these team rankings based on God knows what, I guess, international friendlies that they put out every few days or every week. And Latvia's been moving up in the standings. So I think they've probably been doing pretty well. I haven't caught any of their warm-up games, but I might try to, catch a couple if they're on during the American daylight hours over the next few days. The actual competition starts on the 27th, so we've got 8 days until Eurobasket actually kicks off with the group phase. But that's gonna be really, I think, exciting. We still have. Is it in a couple days? Serbia is supposed to play Slovenia. I don't know if Luka's playing in that game. He's avoided major injury and he's practicing with Team Slovenia, but I don't know if he's going to be playing on a warm-up game right before Eurobasket starts or giving his body as much chance to recover as possible. So that's something to look out for. It's substantially less interesting if Luka doesn't play because Slovenia is challenged otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's not keep our awesome producer trapped for too much longer. Oh, what's that?
I was trying to find the clip, the bogey. Do you remember when that happened?
It was in the third quarter.
All right, let's take a look here. I want to find it. Are there any other plays or anything, chat, you want to talk about, or anything interesting that you guys saw?
I'll scroll through and see if anyone's saying anything interesting. Let's see. Vyacheslav says Luka has to play. The arena is already sold out for that game. I do think that there's a possibility that Luka plays because he does a lot for Team Slovenia and he's a bit of a, he loves a show, so he might play. But I also he might not play. It's a warm-up game. It means literally nothing but beyond, everything to the people who probably bought those tickets. So to be fair, but I wouldn't be surprised either way at this point. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. I think the fact that the reports that came out after, his teammate fell on his leg and said that he avoided major injury, they've said he's resumed training with the team and he plans to be with the team and play with the team and will play in Eurobasket. They didn't say he's planning on playing in this last warm-up game. So that's the, I have a question about that now.
3 assists to a bogey against Germany. Was that true?
Assist to bogey 3 was against.
Could be. Did Jokic have 3 total
assists?
Bogey
assists? 3.
Oh, Jokic assist to bogey 3 is a play that you want.
Sure. I mean, anything that gets buckets sounds pretty good to me.
Let's take a look here. Bogey, driving, passing.
Are you still there?
I'm going to bring up some clips that we got. We'll just go through it. So what do you think of Avramovic?
I thought he was great in this game. Like I said, I thought the combined backcourt of Alexa and Bogey was really good. Like you said, aggressive. Neither of them had a flashy box score. Like I said, Jovic was, I think, the big standout in this game. But I thought the combined backcourt attack and aggressiveness of those guys was really giving Germany problems here. So it was interesting because they struggled really guarding guys on the perimeter, which I feel like they'll just get better at. But I am worried about that interior defense for Team Germany, probably more than anything.
Here's a nice finish from Bogey, getting the handoff from Yoke.
Oh, is this the one? Yeah, here's the one. So this was the and one hook shot that I meant to include there. Just past the Jokic, and he's like, all right, I just gotta beat my defender off the ball, and then I get to drive here because they're giving me all the space. And just bumps the center there, gets the and one hook. Or no, it wasn't an and one, but he wanted it to be. I had it in my notes as an and one hook shot because I was like, that had to be an and one, right? Anyway, I thought that was pretty impressive from Bogey. Good to see him, being healthy and all of that. I don't know what was going on with him in the Clippers series, honestly. I thought he might have been injured or something because he really, really struggled in a way that's okay, you don't expect Bogey to necessarily keep up his regular season impact in a postseason setting when guys are keyed in on him or whatever. But I thought he looked mostly pretty bad throughout that series on both ends of the floor, with the exception of the fourth quarter of Game 4. Right? So I didn't know how he was going to look in this tournament. So it's been good to see him have a few really good games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, him and Jokic, they look like, they had a good connection, but I like that Bogey was able to just play independently and confidently and just get buckets. On that play that we just showed, the defender just sticks to him, which can give you advantage if you look to get it back to Jokic, but he didn't even need it in that scenario. He just got the ball right over and shot it and scored, which was really impressive. Real quick, this was a great pass by Jokic where, the defender, Germany, he's kind of on Jokic, but they're kind of switching. he's obviously loaded up on Jokic very far over, kind of at the nail, and that just allows like a slot cut. Even just one pass away,
yeah.
he's already. It's too late though. Like he was up way too
And
far.
even
on Jokic,
like
and
his man is going with him, and he's still like, like, okay, I gotta like watch out in case Jokic changes his mind and wants to drive or whatever. Like,
yeah,
he's not fully committed to, covering the cut that he already got beat on, right?
Yeah. I don't know where that shot went, but yeah, I have the full game highlights right here. So just trying to find some interesting plays, but I thought they did better to it, like just not trying to force the ball to Jokic in the post. I thought they
thought that was. I don't think that they were trying to get it to him at all. Like, I don't think Jokic in the post was like the game plan. Like whether
not
it was
at all.
like,
but there
high
was some
post
more
and like working at the nail like he is here, sure, but
yeah. There were some plays early on where they had some interesting like cross screens. That's the outlet pass. Where they just have more movement off the ball when Jokic was in the post, or like screening to get him into the post, and then once he gets the ball in the post, screening off of that, and then finding some players, and just like tons of movement, tons of activity. And that was nice to see. But then, and that was early on. And then, yeah, they did kind of go away from that. And it was more like about perimeter play and Serbian players driving and scoring. And then sometimes towards the end of the game, Jokic screening actions and him just reading out of that. But the game kind of got even back in Serbia's hand. They were up 10 even like late. So even though it got scary, don't show all the cards against Germany. Many of us think it would be the final. I mean, the fact that Jokic was resting as long as he was when the game was that close, I mean, I was worried about that.
They didn't bring him in until like the 3-minute mark.
Yeah, I was like,
bring him in after the two backcourt turnovers in a row.
I was like, do they not care if they might lose this?
At the like 5 or 6 minute mark of the fourth quarter.
I know, that was crazy.
Right? Clearly, they weren't playing for the DBB Super Cup trophy, but they got it anyway.
Yes, for sure. I mean, Serbia is looking really dominant. They look like the team chemistry is right where they want it to be. They can try different things. They can play through Jokic or have him be a distributor. And I can't wait to see like what modes they go in based on like the game context and who they're playing throughout the tournament. Yeah,
for sure. Well, for anybody who's still watching this stream, you guys are the real ones. For real. If you made it this far, we really appreciate you guys. If you do like our content, please remember to click the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as hit the notification bell. And leave us a review. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow us on socials. I keep saying this. I've been saying this for months now. We're going to do more with the social media channels. But, life is life.
It's hard to do.
Eventually. But follow us for once we do more with the socials, for sure. All our social links are in the description. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks, even if it's just the DBB Super Cup.
Congrats to Serbia.
Congrats.